Rob Dauster. I have with me today Randolph, Childress, and John Henson. And before we get into our first month of the season superlatives, before we talk a little bit about the big picture world of college basketball, we have something pretty unpleasant to talk about. It's not something that I enjoy talking about. It's not the reason why I wanted to get into the business of covering college basketball, but Chris Beard, the head coach at the University of Texas, was arrested early this morning about 4:18 a.m. for assault by strangulation and suffocation, which is a third-degree felony. It was essentially domestic violence. He and his fiance had an altercation on Sunday night, and I'll walk you through a little bit of the details that were released in the police report and the arrest report that came out on Monday afternoon, just so everyone's on the same page and everybody understands what we're dealing with here. If domestic violence situations trigger you, consider this the trigger warning. It is not something that is pleasant to listen to or pleasant to read, but Beard's fiance said they've been together for a total of 6 years. And over the last couple of days, they had been upset with each other regarding their relationship issues. On Sunday night, a verbal altercation turned physical when she said he just snapped on me. It became super violent after she she grabbed a pair of his glasses and broke them. She went to another room. Beard followed a few minutes later, slapped glasses off of her face. She said he choked me, he threw me off the bed, he bit me, bruises all over my legs, throwing me around and going nuts. She concluded her statement to the police by saying, "I just did not feel safe, and that is why she called 911. She said that when he held her neck, she could not breathe for 5 seconds. And there's a lot more in the arrest report. You can find that in some of the articles that have been published about this and some of the breaking news, specifically from the Austin American-Statesman, who's been all over the story. I don't really want to read all that much more from it because you can kind of get the gist from there. But I will start off this conversation by saying this. If these allegations prove to be true, Chris Beard should not coach basketball ever again at the college level, let alone coach at the University of Texas. I think that they made the right decision suspending him indefinitely, although it took a little while longer than it probably should have. And we will see where it goes from here. They just finished playing an overtime game against Rice, in which they won, with Rodney Terry serving as the interim head coach. But we have not heard from athletic director Chris Alcante. As far as I know, Rodney Terry to this point has not yet spoken to the media, and nothing has come out from that. I do not expect him to say much of anything coming out of this, but it's not a fun thing to talk about. It's not a fun thing to read. It's not a fun thing to see. It's an unfortunate situation, one of Beard's own doing. And like I said, RC, if these allegations prove to be true, he should not coach Texas anymore, and he should not be coaching college basketball players anymore.
I mean, the first thing is, let's just hope prayers go out to the victim. I mean, if like I said, provided these things are true, I don't think that things would have progressed this far without some clarity on it. I mean, there's some action, and let's hope she's okay. And then a distant second or distant down the road, let's hope Chris eventually gets some help, because that's to react no matter what. There's no reason to react that way. And unfortunately did. This is tough on everybody involved. This is way bigger than a basketball issue. So, prayers to her. I hope she's okay, and let's hope Chris gets some help down the line. But right now, I think it's just a matter of time. Legal reasons, if this is true, I just think lawyers being involved and making sure everything is just from a legal standpoint, that, that the I's is dotted and the T's is crossed, is the only reason why he's not fired, probably effective immediately. So that stuff will take care of itself. But listen, let's just pray for her. Nothing good comes out of this. It's going to be a lot of hurt, a lot of embarrassment for a lot of people. And, we'll, as fans, people will talk about basketball games later. This is just much bigger than basketball games.
Yeah, there's no excuse. If those allegations are true, there is no excuse. And you feel for the kids that trusted their college careers, man, to go to that university and having to deal with that. So prayers out to everyone. it's like I said, it's bigger than basketball, man. So hopefully he does get the help he needs, and hopefully those kids can kind of rally, together and kind of salvage the season, man. It's gonna be a lot of distractions. So, I feel for the families, and this is a decision that he made that it's gonna reverberate for years, man. So, I feel terrible for everyone in that situation.
Yeah, I feel for his fiance. I feel for Beard's daughters who have to see their father in this light now.
Your whole
But John,
family, your
yeah, the
whole
whole
family,
family.
everybody. I mean, and that's why I said nothing good's going to come out of this from family, from relatives,
Hmm.
even from Texas. Whether you're a Texas fan or you're not, it's not fair to those kids. It's not fair to that institution. Like everybody around has to answer to this. This will be a cloud over everybody's head. And like I said again, no more victim than his fiance. I mean, no woman should have to go through that. And I mean, I know we don't like open up the show and having to talk about that, but I think it is because, we talk about a lot of difficult stuff here, and we've never shied away from it. And Chris has been on this show several times, and I don't want anybody feeling as though like we're afraid to say. I think that we're all agreeing here that if this stuff is true, then he should never coach another game of basketball, period, and be around anyone, kids, and he needs help and counseling and all those things. But that decision has affected a lot of people, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, and I really like Chris as a person. He's one of the coaches that I'm probably closest with. When we were just in Austin, we hung out with him for about 3 hours after the game. He took us on a tour of the facilities before the game, and I say this as someone that knows him really well. And I mean, I just don't know what else to say other than the fact that if he's capable of doing something like, I don't think people are ever as bad as the worst thing that they do, right? Um, but I also think I was talking with a buddy of mine about this. I also think that it's really important that um, we understand that having the privilege of being able to be the coach of an institution as prestigious as the University of Texas and to make the amount of money that he's making is a privilege. And you don't get to have that privilege if you are capable and you do something like this. If you commit the acts that he committed. I also want to say just something because I keep seeing people mentioning this. Um, we have not heard from the victim in this yet. The lawyer that represents Chris Beard came out and said on the record to reporters that the victim in this case does not want the charges to continue and wants the charges dropped. Um, we do not know if he represents her. If he does not represent her, I don't know why he is speaking publicly for her. And I think it's really important to understand that the dynamics of a domestic violence situation and the dynamics of an abuser and their victim is such that those situations are so difficult to deal with in large part because of the control that the abuser has over the victim. So we don't necessarily know exactly how that works. We are not in that relationship with them, but I think it's very important to note that until we actually hear directly from um, the victim, directly from someone representing her that we know is representing her, we cannot take that as facts at this point. And I thought that was something that was important for us to get to and to talk about in this situation here. So I don't know. I don't know really where else to go from there. I think that simply saying that if this ends up being true, then he cannot coach anymore. I think that is about as strong as you can say. I also think it is important to say that they made the right decision not letting him coach, right? And to your point, RC, it's going to take a little while to get when you're dealing with a situation where you have literally tens of millions of dollars in contracts signed. It takes a while to kind of work through all of that. You can't just rip it up in one day. But I do think that eventually it may take weeks, it may take months before we actually get the final say on that and the final ruling. But it's not. I would be very surprised if this is true if we see Chris Beard coach Texas basketball ever again or be a part of that program or team ever again. All right. Now that we have that covered and now that we have that out of the way, one of the things that we wanted to do on tonight's show was to walk through kind of some big picture stuff that has happened over the course of the first month of the season. We're going to get into some overreactions. We're going to talk about the best team in the SEC. We're going to talk about some of the best coaches in America. We're going to give some of our first month awards. But first and foremost, the way that we start this off is our toast of the night. We start every show. So I'm going to send my toast out to the players on that Texas basketball team who went to that program to play for a man that is no longer going to be coaching them. I can't imagine that it was easy for them to play that game tonight. I can't imagine that that was pleasant for them to have to wake up to that news for a guy that I presume they all have a very good relationship with. And they found a way, despite all of that, to not only win, but to win in overtime. So my toast of the night, my cheers of the night is going to go out to the players on the Texas basketball team and interim head coach Rodney Terry for finding a way to kind of get all that done. Not an easy situation for them. Henson, go to you next.
I'm going to go with, I'm looking up the stats right now. I'm going to go Desmond Cambridge on Arizona State. They just won the game, actually, by 2. When Creighton was kind of pulling away, he kind of came in the game and, buoyed them, kind of saved them a little bit, hit a couple big time threes and kind of, led the charge. And so that's going to be my toast of the night. Desmond Cambridge, Arizona State. They got a good win tonight.
RC?
My my toast of the night is, I'm going to switch sports, man. It's Mike Leach, football coach at Mississippi State, and prayers, man, to him and his family and that community. I mean, it's just a reminder to us all. I mean, I know he's still alive, but there's just difficult circumstances down there. We don't know all the details yet. And you have something like that happen. And then now with this Chris Beard news and other stuff like that kind of, overshadows that. But, I've been around a program that, had a coach that suffered a heart attack, and that coach didn't make it. And it was my alma mater. And I know the impact that has on an institution. Everybody, it's bigger than just the athletic department when these things happen. And he was a great guy. He's a funny guy, as a football guy, just hearing him and watching him. And so to Mike Leach and his family and in Mississippi State community, prayers to you guys. And that's my toast of the night.
One of the great characters in all of college athletics.
Absolutely.
Mike Leach.
Absolutely.
And I don't know the specifics of that situation. I do know the specifics of something that happened in my neighborhood about a month ago. One of my neighbors actually had a heart attack when he was out to dinner with his wife and his daughter. And the only reason that he made it through was because when he fell, the guy sitting at the table right next to him was a registered EMT and started doing CPR immediately the second that he hit the floor. So if you have a chance to learn how to do CPR and you have a chance to teach yourself how to give CPR, it could be something that could save somebody's life one day. So that is my PSA and my public service announcement for the afternoon. All right, you guys ready to get in some overreactions? I'm pretty excited about these. Now look, Dagan was making fun of me off the air because he said that my hot takes are not quite hot enough.
They stink, Rob.
Get on them hanging.
I'll try to pick it up next time. But we're going to start with this. Alabama came from 15 down on the road, 17 minutes left in the game, outscored Houston 42-21, one of the best defensive teams in the country, one of the toughest teams that we've seen in college basketball, basically kicked their ass over the last 15 minutes with 4 freshmen on the floor. They are today the best team in the SEC. John Henson, true or false?
I'm going to go false. I mean, we need to see a little more. They played well. When I was watching the game, I kind of tuned out a little bit. It looked like Houston had it in control. But I think, they got a little more work to do. I really like Tennessee, especially defensively. They're on another level, man. So let me see, with 4 freshmen, it's going to be up and down season for them.
I did the exact same thing you did, by the way, John. When it got to 44-29, I think someone called a timeout or there was a break, and I walked to the kitchen. I got a new bowl of snacks, and I got a new seltzer, and I come back and it's like an 8-point game. I'm like, well, what just happened?
I got an update on my phone. I'm like, hold on. I had to turn it back. You know what I'm saying? So that was a good game.
On your 100-inch TV that has four different TVs on it at one time.
Hey, I'm gonna support the young guys, man. I like Tennessee as well. I like the experience of Tennessee, but what's missing from Alabama's team? I mean, the guard play is strong. strong. I mean, you got a freaking McDonald's All-American point guard coming off your bench that I thought was the biggest factor in them winning the Houston game. Again, the biggest thing about them that I like in that matchup, if we're just comparing those two teams, they rebound the hell out of the ball because they did that against Houston. We thought Houston would try to punk them on the glass. They didn't. They responded well. They make shots, man. Them dudes are shooting the hell out of the ball. They're shooting it over. They make about 11, 12 threes a night. That's tough. And that contradicts because Tennessee's playing that big style. So it'll be a style versus fight. The two bigs versus the way Alabama wants to play, shooting, clipping threes, man. So I'm not big on. If I had to pick it again, I'm going to go with Alabama. I just like what I've seen from them playing away. I'm going to lean that way. I know what Tennessee is. We know what Rick Barnes is. Hell, I almost committed to play for him. I'm a huge fan of his. But right now, I'm going to go with the young guy.
John, didn't you almost commit to him too?
I almost committed to Texas too. I like Rick too, man. So yeah,
he was so far back. He was well before Texas to me. But
yeah,
he's a hell of a guy. I loved him. He was just a little too far for me from being from home, but he's been doing it for a long time and just a great guy and actually won in Texas as well. But he's hard to go against. But Oaks got Alabama rolling, man, and I can't go against them right now.
You know what was so impressive to me about that game, and I want both of you guys' take on this because you've played at very high levels, John. You've played a long time in the NBA. RC, you coached for a long time, so you understand the dynamics of a college locker room. Javon Quinterly, former McDonald's All-American,
yes.
Guy that came into Alabama with a lot of expectations, coming off of a torn ACL, came into this season, got a starting job back, and at the end of this game, he didn't play in the second half. He didn't play 1 second in the second half. And what he did was he sat on that bench and he said, Nate, do not take Jaden Bradley out of the game. He's kicking their ass. Do not take him out. Let him go play. Let him make the difference. He's doing everything that we need to do to win this game. And I think that when you have that dynamic on a roster, John, it changes everything, right? When you don't have guys worried about shots, when your star players who may or may not have the biggest egos on the team end up being the ones that will sacrifice their minutes and sacrifice their shots, like that changes everything, right?
Yeah, it's the culture. That's just a culture thing. Nate Oates has instilled that in, them obviously with winning is most important. And anything else, it doesn't even matter. And for him to be that mature, that actually gives me a little more confidence that they might be the best team in the SEC, right?
No.
That's a good story. It's a guy like that's good. So I love that, man. And I still think Quiverly has a chance to be a pro. And I think just that story like that is just going to add to his potential as being a team player, being a point guard. And I love that, man, especially in college. I love it.
He'll get better and better too as he recovers, as he distances himself further with rehab, going down the line from that ACL, surgery, which is credit to him. He got back as quick as he did because it's not, he didn't tear that a year ago. I mean, he's months into that rehab and still rehabbing it. So as he gets better, that leg gets stronger, he gets more confidence in it, then this team will even be even better.
Yeah, he's dynamic. He's talented. He can make plays off the bounce. All right, you teased it a little bit, RC. You mentioned Tennessee. They beat Maryland 56-53 on Sunday afternoon in what was probably the ugliest college basketball game I think that I've ever seen in my entire life. Maryland was 3 for 24 from the floor in the first half. John, we actually, if you remember talking about how they were running Spain pick and roll at Texas was at Jimmy V. Mm-hmm. Maryland, second half, about 8 straight possessions ran that Spain pick and roll, and that's the way that they were able to loosen up that defense. So what's your take on Tennessee, man? Like the second thing that I have written down was actually not Alabama. Tennessee is the best team in the SEC. That's my second overreaction from. I mean,
this is going to go with this, later in the show. But I mean, I have Tennessee as my most underrated team in the country. Just the way that they're playing defensively. They held 2 for 24 behind the arc. Season low 0.8 points per possession. I can't wait to see the Arizona game. That's going to be the test, right? That's going to be that test that, hey, look, can you guys do it against the big boys? They're one of the best scoring, best teams in the nation. Can you do that? And I think Tennessee, when they play Arizona, I mean, we'll see what they really like. But right now, I love Tennessee. I think they're the best team in the SEC at the moment over Alabama. So,
yeah, that Tennessee Arizona game.
That will be big. I mean, because there's similar styles. The one thing about that game, though, is that that's going to be big on big.
Yep.
So great. I'm not, concerned about that as far as style. But when you play big, the issue becomes when you play against a small ball lineup. Can you guard against a small ball lineup? Can you guard can your big guard on the floor? And what are you going to do? Can you switch with that person or not? That particular big. So I'm curious to see what they do. The one thing that concerns about this team too is they're not shooting the ball great. They're not a great 3-point shooting team. And that at some point they control the pace with their guard play and they're gonna grind you out. But you're gonna have to. You got a less margin for error when you're shooting the ball as poorly as they are from three.
Yeah, I just worry about teams that try to win games in like the 60s, right?
Yes, that grinded out style.
Who on that Tennessee team can you, if you really need one, right? And you're going up against
go get me one,
and you really need someone to go get you a shot. Who are you giving it to? Because I don't know if Santi's the guy, right? I don't know if Vescovi's the guy.
Better run that set. You better run you a nice set, Coach Barnes. Get you a nice at the time ATO, man. You know what I'm saying? Look, it's college, man. Get you a nice set. So
my camera's acting up over here. I don't know what's going on, but
we hear you though.
You hear me? All right. So while I go with this, RC, talk to me a little bit about Julian Phillips, right? He's the guy I think that is going to be the key to this, right? That's going to be the guy that can take you to the next step.
Yes, but he can't do it shooting 21% from three. I mean, he's struggling from behind the line right now. He's only I think he's 4-19 from behind the line. And that court's going to shrink when you get into conference play and people start saying, you shoot 21%, I'm not even going out there. I mean, they're just going to start backing up and just sitting in the lane. So and he's not surrounded with great shooting. And that's the thing. It's not just this one guy. When you start, it goes back to what we talked about with Kentucky. Like part of our problem is with Kentucky is that, hey, your two best players, they want to play at the rim. And there's not enough spacing. And I worry about that right now with those guys. Will it happen game by game? They're going to defend, they're going to grind, they're going to rebound. We know what they're going to do. But when they come against some of these high-octane teams that want to score the ball, that do shoot the three well, I just want to see how this team matches up and responds with it. Are they good? There's no doubt they're good. I'm not questioning that. This team is going to be right there in the end, probably a top 2 seed in the tournament, because we just know what they are. They're going to be right there trying to compete for this championship. But I say this, if we're comparing these two teams, I know what Kentucky is. I don't know how good Alabama can be. I think that's the best difference come March with these two teams.
All right, I got some heat for you. All right, this might be a hot take.
Bring it.
I still think that Arkansas has the highest ceiling of any team in that conference. No other team in the SEC, no other team in college basketball can say that they have 4 pros in their starting lineup. Anthony Black, Nick Smith, Jordan Walsh, Ricky Council. All those guys are going to play in the league, right? They're all 6'4" to 6'7", athletic, switchable, all that kind of good stuff. They have enough size in the Mitchell twins to kind of figure it out, right? Devo Davis, he's a guy, he's like their 7th man right now. He was preseason All-SEC Player of the Year heading into, I think it was last season, right? Heading into his sophomore season. They have a lot of talent. And that's even with Trevon Brazile with his torn ACL. I still think that they're the most talented team in that league. When they're at their best, I think they're the best team in that conference. Is that crazy? Is that hot enough? Is that a hot enough take?
Before
it's
the
cool.
injury,
I mean, you got 4 pros. You got 4 pros. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not hot take. You got 4 potential first rounders. I mean, I would hope that they would put up a little fight. So, that's and I actually enjoy it. That's probably my favorite team to watch play, obviously. You know what I mean? Just being, 4 guys that just really dynamic, playmakers, scorers. And so, it's a kind of a hot take, but you say you got 4 first rounders. So, that's easy,
Ricky Council is a game changer.
Yeah.
He's a game changer. He might be the most athletic dude in college basketball, this side of Andre Jackson. By the way, since we're talking about this, right? Everyone wants to give Alabama all their props. Everyone wants to give Alabama their flowers. RC, I got a question for you. Who beat Alabama by 14 points earlier this year in the PK 85? You don't remember who?
Who beat him? I don't remember who it was.
You don't remember who it was? John, you remember who it was?
I was going to say.
You don't remember who it was? It was UConn.
UConn. Ooh.
Beat him by 14 points.
John, I knew what it was, man.
I thought it was an inside joke. Like I thought he was trying to set you up. I'm
I
like, wait
was
for
not
it.
going for that. I knew exactly where he was going with this, and I was like, "There's no way in hell I'm going to sit here with Rob and go over this UConn stuff again." They're good, dude.
You're not giving me the satisfaction. You're not giving me the satisfaction.
I'm not giving you the glory of hearing that come out of my mouth tonight. That's not happening. I'm sorry.
All right.
I'm not doing.
Well, listen. All right.
They're
Here's another take for you. I'm going to spice this one up a little bit. Tommy Lloyd, since Dagan said it wasn't hot enough, Tommy Lloyd right now is the best coach in college basketball. RC, true, false, a little bit too hot, or just kind of the right kind of spice?
No, I will say this. I don't know if I can argue against that. I think, like you said, losing the talent that he's lost, and that team seems not to change, not to lose a beat, is impressive. And that's what you judge a lot of coaches off of. But there's so many great coaches out there, man. And I'll say this: if we were picking, and we talked about picking maybe coaches of the year so far, I don't know if anybody was going to pick him, but I am impressed with his recruiting and his coaching. I think he adjusts instead of having just one way to play. It just seems as though right now, early in his coaching career, he's recruiting to the style of play that he wants to play, and I can't argue it one way or the other. I couldn't argue if you would have said that though.
Yeah. Hey, John, do you see what he did there? You see how he navigated that without picking a side?
I'll say this. I'll say no. Could I name 5 coaches? Yes. But I'll say this: would I name 5? Would he be in my top 5? I'd say yes, because I'm not going to pick him off just last year. I won't argue it, but if you tell me to pick 5, I could probably pick 5 other guys. I'd say that.
So I agree with you. Great coach. Okay, best coach in the country, arguably. But there's a guy named Rick Pitino still coaching. And
Stop it.
Let's talk. I mean, we talking numbers or we just talking names? Like, I mean, what is
stop it? I ain't giving you tricky Rick.
Yeah, like, come on.
Hey.
Like, Rick Pitino, like, I mean, he's an Iona now, but if Pitino was still somewhere, I mean, he'd be in the conversation. He just would. If he was somewhere, still Louisville, wherever he would be at. Like, I don't know. Like, I like Tommy Lloyd though, but
hey, just wait till he's coming back to Louisville, John. Just wait till he comes back to Louisville.
Right, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, he can spin the block.
I knew it was coming.
You know what I mean? So, like,
nah, he's an all-timer, man. He's a Hall of Famer.
He's an all-timer, so he's still coaching. I'm just saying. He's still on the sidelines. We got, so that's my hot take of the day, you know what I mean?
So here's what there's 2 things that really impressed me about Tommy. Is the first one is you lose Ben Mathurin, you lose Dalen Terry, you lose Christian Coloco, and there's absolutely no drop off on your team at all. I think that's really impressive. 2, I don't know how many coaches can play 2 bigs that are complete non-threats from beyond the arc. Azuolas Tubelis and Umar Ballo just they're not bad shooters. They're non-shooters. They don't shoot threes. They're not even a threat out there. And he's managed to make them the #1 offense in college basketball, according to KenPom. They are the best offensive team in the country, and they do it with 2 guys where you look at them and you say, you got 2 bigs that can't shoot. There's no way that you can run efficient offense in modern basketball, John. To me, that is what's so impressive about them.
And I think the biggest thing for them is they complement each other. I think that's why they're so good. Even when I was in school, me and Z were 2 bigs, but we just complimented each other. I didn't really like to score like that. I looked to score, but I wasn't. Z wanted to score. I had length. Z had, Z had size. So, like, I think they complement each other in a way that helps them. And there's going to be a game where someone's going to have to sit, depending on the flow of it. But fails to be seen right now. So they're rolling. I love what they're doing over there. Arizona's always a kind of a sneaky good team throughout the year. And then, and when March comes, they kind of announce themselves to the world. So they got a few big games coming up. And just even on another note, like, all these teams playing each other, I can't keep up, man. Like, I don't know if this is the new norm with all these big time schools just kind of going head to head, but I love it. You know what I mean?
That's only with some schools.
Can they win a title?
Still ducking work. I don't know. You know what? Again, the question becomes, I worry about them defensively with the Zulus. I wonder, and putting him again, when you're at that big, when you're big, can that 4-man switch and can he guard? And I'm not, that's the difference. He's going to have to guard when you're playing that small ball. And the other question is he dynamic enough offensively to punish that smaller guy? I mean, you can win that way, but that matchup becomes the critical matchup of the entire game, of the entire situation. How does that big four match up with that small ball four? Can he punish them inside and play great enough offensively? Because that's some of the things we talk about with these big centers. If you got a traditional big, he better be damn good offensively, because if not, you just sitting back and drop coverage and trying to keep everything in front. He better be able to dominate the game a la Hunter Dickinson, some of these other guys. If not,
Right.
the rotations that they put you in defensively is tough with one big if you can't do it. And if you got two, you better be dominant in the paint. You better control the pace, and they still have to be willing to guard.
Right.
But you're going to have some limitations with that. So again, and we'll see. And you'll be exposed when it come tournament time. I mean, we'll see in the tournament, but we'll see in some of these other matchups. I don't know about the Tennessee and Arizona matchup, because it's big on big. But when you start playing some of the small ball things, that you put a lot of pressure on a lot of other guys, to have to guard.
Yeah. So Tubelis and Ballo combined this season are averaging 39 points, 19 boards, 3 blocks, and they're shooting combined a very nice 69% from the floor. So the issue with me, you're right about the defense. Yeah, it's nice, right, John? Not bad.
You do. I mean, if they're playing like that, I don't care who you got out there. They're gonna be a good team. So it'll be interesting to see down the stretch, man, what happens, like you said, when they small ball, or when teams start to kind of figure them out, or when they start, if they lose a game or two, where teams look at that film and say, okay, where can I exploit them at? So,
yep. All right. Next up, we have Kansas. And by the way, you can still get free Bill t-shirts from the merch store. Field of 68.shop, free Bill.
Free Bill.
Okay. Doesn't get much better than that. I love this one. Come on, man. That's a nice shirt. That's a nice t-shirt. Field of 68.shop. If you use the code RC, you get 0% off, because RC wouldn't tell us exactly how many points he averaged when he was a senior. We know. We know you know. We know you know. So the take here is that when Kansas is making their threes, Jalen Wilson and Kevin McCullough are combined 11 for 23 in the last 2 games. They won those 2 games by an average of 27 points against Seton Hall, Missouri. When those two are making their threes, Kansas is not only the best team in the Big 12, but they're one of the top 5 teams in America. RC, I'm going to you first on this one.
They are, but I don't believe that's in their makeup consistently. I just don't think the DNA of that team, that's not a strength. And when they're making shots, it'll be as simple as they can beat anybody. Now, what this team has shown, that defensively, they're so tough. They'll get after you when they're not making shots at a high level, but that's not their DNA to shoot from that kind of number. It's great that they're doing it now. It's great that they're showing you they can do it, but you still got Harris, who's not a 3-point shooter. Sometimes he doesn't even look to shoot. And then when you got these guys, it's not their strength. The only guy that you're fearful of on that team from behind the line is Grady Dick. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at him and you're like, all right, you got to red him. Can't give him any looks. Everybody else, you honestly can live with.
You want to know what they say when he's making shots, RC? You want to know what they say when he's making shots? This is what they say when he's making shots. That's what they say when he's making shots.
Hey, I bet they should. Listen, when he's making shots, he's fun to watch. I mean, with that group, but and that frees him up when those guys will start making shots, because it makes it easier. But they're a tough team. We know they're well coached. We know they're going to get after you defensively. They're going to be there in the end. But if they're hitting threes, then nobody's beating them at that point. But I don't believe outside of Grady Dick that's the norm, that you can count on it night in and night out.
Yeah, Jalen Wilson's shooting 36% from 3. Don't know if that's believable or not, or if it's going to go up or down, but, he's shooting better. But like you said, that's a team that just, when they're hitting, they look good. Even with the Mizzou, there was kind of rumblings, big time game for them, going to be tough for them. They handled them. So they'll be there at the end, but, as a team that has a chance of winning that championship, I don't think you've ever, had a team win where you're like, well, when they're hitting shots, they're good. So there's going to be a game, hopefully not soon in March, where they're going to have to hit some shots, and hopefully they are. Maybe, maybe they won't be. So, it's going to be an interesting run for them behind that arc.
I will say this. Jalen Wilson seems like he's that next Kansas guy, the 4-year guy that's just elevated his game. And it wouldn't shock me if he was to shoot 36% of the year, because It's just freaking Kansas, and that's what 4-year guys do at Kansas.
Yeah. When they went into Missouri, you kind of touched on this, John. That was probably the biggest game in Missouri basketball in like the last 10 years since Kim English was there when they lost to Norfolk State in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Sorry, Kimmy. I always got to bring that up. But they went in there and like an hour and a half before the game started, the student section was filled. It was packed. They were loud. They were fired up. And Kansas went in there and just beat the brakes off them. They put 95 on them. They gave them a 30-piece. It's just in a rivalry game like that. Like, what is that? You played in big rivalry games.
I mean,
when you could do that to an opponent like that, there's nothing better than that. I think Shamon Williams would probably agree too, based off what he was saying at the Final Four last year. RC
Kansas, for lack of better words, Kansas snuffed them out early. I mean, early. That crowd was quieted early, and it wasn't even close. And I think that's Bill Self being there, preparing them for the game, motivating those guys. And, sometimes having that big rivalry crowd gets you going, gets you locked in a little more. So Missouri should have made the stands a little more empty, man, because those guys probably walked out there and were fired up. You know what I mean? So, and they played like it. They played well. I honestly thought it was going to be a lot closer. I was watching that game because I watched Missouri play Wichita State in that overtime game, and I thought Mizzou wasn't bad. So I thought it was gonna be a closer game, but that's what you do as a good team in Kansas. And when it's a team, you go into their house and you take their cookies, man. And that's what they did.
Missouri's coming though. Missouri's coming. They're coming. They got. I think this is a little quicker than maybe even Coach Gates and those guys thought. That team would be as good as they are this early. And we questioned the resume at that point.
RC, do you have a problem with that schedule? You said we questioned the resume. I think that was all Jeff Goodman. Jeff Goodman asked a lot of questions about that schedule. I
think it's normal when you just starting out like that. I'm okay with the schedule like that when you're trying to change a culture and you're trying to win. My issue is with the coaches that's been there 3 or 4 years, and then come March, you're complaining about why you didn't get in the NCAA tournament, and you're sitting here playing Sisters of the Poor the first round. But when you're just getting in, you're trying to turn a culture around, teach guys how to win. I got no problem with that. They just met the rivalry real early in the season, and things just change. I mean, it happens. But
he found a way.
I questioned their resume. I did question their resume.
The biggest issue that Missouri had coming into this game was that there was no buzz around the program at all. No one cared about it. It was just it was basically like Missouri State. There was no difference between Missouri and Missouri State. No one really cared about it. And he went out.
That's a hot take.
No, but look, they were what, like 5-13 in the SEC. They're not even in the Big 12 anymore. Like, they don't really have any natural rivals in this new conference. There was just no juice there. Right. And you go out and you're 9-0, and then you got Kansas coming in the building. They don't call it the border war anymore. I think they call it the border rivalry now, because you can't call any kind of these rivalries wars, but it's the border war. It's always going to be the border war. So I'm going to call it the border war. And so you win those 9 games, and then you got the biggest game in a decade. You got juice. You're on big ESPN. When was the last time Missouri was on big ESPN? And I'm sorry if I keep looking up, by the way, because my other camera's over here and the camera on my laptop is over here. And my other camera, somehow it came unplugged. So I keep finding my habit is to look up here. And Dagan keeps texting me. He says, look at your new camera. Look at your new camera. So sorry if I'm doing that. But I think what he did was the right thing. And I know that that's going to be a hot take. And I know that Goodman's probably going to, you're going to see him tweeting about something, maybe jump in the YouTube chat, yelling at me about it. I think that he made the right decision, scheduling easy so that he could find a way to get some buzz going with the program. Because, John, that's what they were missing. No one cared.
He did the right thing. There's no doubt he did the right thing. Their best game, their best win was Wichita State game. But nobody cared. I don't even frown upon that loss. It's a bad loss for them. Nobody wants to lose like that. But again, I think it's just a credit to those guys of getting that program going. And with Gates and CY, the 2 ex-Florida State Seminoles, man, I think they're going to get it going out there.
All right. So we're talking about the ACC, right? We're in the ACC. And I have 2 ACC legends on the Zoom with me. And
one and a half. I'm a half.
Yeah, whatever.
One and a half. So I'm going to ask you guys this right now. One of you guys played at Wake Forest. One of you guys played in North Carolina. I don't think either of those teams are winning the ACC this year. I don't think Duke's winning the ACC this year. I don't think it's Virginia. It's Virginia Tech or Miami. They're both sitting there at 10-1 this season. RC, have you had any of any games from Miami or Virginia Tech yet this year?
I have Virginia Tech.
They're good. They're no joke.
They're really good. They're really good. Now, we can't dismiss Virginia though. They're legit. I mean,
Can you let me have a hot take here
with
without yelling at me, please?
No.
Yeah.
But hey, Miami, I would have said Miami, even though I think they're good. They scared me the other day with the 107 or 105 game against Cornell. I don't know what that was about, but they won it. You know, they didn't bring their best stuff and they won. So, but I won't make it. I just think we can't dismiss Virginia because of that resume. If Virginia had a schedule where they didn't play anybody, I'd be like, but no, we got to give Virginia their due.
Can those two win? Can those two win the ACC? Maybe not the regular season. I think that they're in the mix, but they definitely can win the ACC tournament title, right? They can beat anybody in that conference.
Virginia
That's
Tech,
where I'm at
for sure. Virginia Tech. I'll give you Virginia Tech. I'm not saying Miami can't. The thing that concerns me with Miami is they're small ball, and then there's Miami.
Yeah.
Like there's a difference. Like they're like, because if you can't, they're a team because of rebound, they got to turn you over.
Right.
That's part of their DNA. And Coach L will tell you, they got to turn you over. And when they doing that, you turn it over or you get into a running gun game with them, lights out, you're not beating them, forget about it. And Jordan Miller is probably the best player in the country that nobody's talking about. Everybody's talking about Isaiah Wong, talking about Nigel Pack. Go watch him. Nobody's talking about Jordan Miller, and he is playing as good as anybody. My only concern with Miami is size. They're just really, really, really small, and you know, obviously they got dudes. They're just small, but that's my only knock on them. No, other than that, I got nothing else against.
John, where are you at?
I agree. Miami's size is definitely a concern, and you know, Jim Larinaga did say at the beginning of the season, we're gonna have to turn guys over. We gotta have to rebound, gang rebound. So that's tough task to ask kids every night. You know, but I like their team, and Virginia Tech is just top to bottom, super solid. I've laughed the other day, like when the last time you heard like Virginia Tech, UVA, like it's gonna be a prime time matchup, you know, when they play each other or in a tournament. So like it's fun to see new blood in the ACC because right now the blue bloods are, you know, trying to figure it out. You know, Carolina, they finally got a win against Georgia Tech, which I think is a much needed game for them. But yeah, I still think UVA is the cream of the crop. They're going to be solid. They're going to be there at the end of the year. Don't know where, but they'll be there. Virginia Tech is going to have to keep it up. Miami, I mean, how many times have we seen Miami start off hot, you know, these last 4 or 5 years, and then all of a sudden they just kind of falter into the kind of abyss. So we'll see if that consistency keeps up. I like Isaiah Wong as well. Finally got the NIL bread, man. So he's hooping right now. So.
yeah.
No, he got a raise. He got an NIL raise.
He said, I'm out. He said, I'm out if I don't get my bread. If my money is not up, I'm out. That is crazy.
Like he was the first NIL holdout. That was awesome. Look, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm sure that sucked for the Miami coaching staff. I loved it. I loved every second of it. He's like, wait, you're bringing him in? Are you giving him $400K? I'm only getting 125.
He
I'm
did
out.
just what everybody was supposed to do. Like, wait a minute. I'm the best player on this team. I'm the first All ACC league guard, and you paid him how much? Look at here. That went away so fast. As soon as he said, "Yo, I need more bread."
Yeah, they said they had to figure that out. They had to go to the drawing board. Miami's not hard though. Private school down in Miami, man. They probably called. Who knows, man? Lamborghini.
They called Luke. They called Luke back. They made
an call Luke. Lamborghini Miami. Say, look.
They called Uncle Luke. Uncle Luke, we need you. We need knowledge.
You just give Isaiah a Lamborghini, man, and just call it a day. Like, you know what I'm saying? We'll put your signage up and we'll have him do a post. You know what I mean?
Hey, but Rob, I'll say this too, and let's not forget, Virginia Tech's gonna get Rodney Rice back real quickly. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if they come out of exams and he starts playing again by the end of this month.
Yeah. So the thing that I love about this Virginia Tech team is that they're so bought into exactly what Mike wants them to run. And Mike is so fucking creative when it comes to the sets that he runs and the ways that he can kind of scheme these guys to get open shots. Like whether it's the Couture kid, whether it's Sean Padula, like he finds ways to get these dudes in actions where they can get an open look. And he's got a bunch of guys that don't miss. Plus Justin Mutz does everything that you need somebody to do. Plus, like he has Grant Basile. Is it Grant Basile, whatever his name is? They got that dude. He's like he's 6'10", 250. They got him running off of pin downs. I know, John Henson,
Yeah.
you're looking there like, man, how come I couldn't get somebody?
Yeah, I'm looking at the box
I
score.
couldn't. You couldn't give me coming off a stagger.
Yeah, I'm looking at. I mean, they're super balanced. I mean, they got the bigs are playing. The guards playing 30 minutes a game. Couture didn't even play that well against Oklahoma State, and they still kind of handled them. And yeah, Virginia Tech's a force to be reckoned with. And I think that started last year when they kind of had that little run and gave them a little confidence. Man,
Because they got 4 dudes shooting 40% or better from 3. So they don't
That's-
have to rely on one guy. And the other thing about them is they probably got 3 of the better individual defenders one-on-one. Hunter Couture is as good a 3-and-D guys you're going to find. Padula was really good. Physically, he's matured. He's a good defender. Mutz is an ACC player of the year type of defender. Those 3 guys anchor their defense, and then they got multiple guys making shots. Basili shoots it well. Maddox shoots it well. And then again, they're still going to get a 4-star and Rodney Rice coming back too.
Yeah. They make threes, they don't turn the ball over, and they're well coached. And that's about everything that you need. All right. This is not on the rundown, and I know Dagan's going to yell at me about it, but I do want to ask you guys, North Carolina, they got to win. To me, it's not a talent issue with that group at all, right? They have enough really good players to be a top 5, top 10 team in college basketball. It's an effort thing. It's a camaraderie thing. It's a teamwork thing. Let's make sure everybody in the locker room gets along thing. Like the issue with them is not the pieces. It's getting the pieces to fit and the personalities to fit, maybe more importantly. So you go out, I know it was just Georgia Tech, but you still went out and you beat the hell out of Georgia Tech, John. So are you feeling better about this team now? You feeling better about this?
Better. I'm gonna take a quote from Tyler Hansbrough on his exchange with Jeff where we were talking about getting him to show and talking. I'm gonna wait for him to get healthy, practice a little more, then come back to me. I think that's what they needed. They need to practice. They need to get healthy, and I still don't know what type of team they are. Georgia Tech's not the best team, not the best program. So it was a good feel-good win for everyone. But I still think that game, the score indicates that it wasn't but that game was a lot closer than the score kind of indicated. I mean, North Carolina had control, but it wasn't like we were cruising. You know what I'm saying?
They never pulled away. Like they weren't up by 30. It was like they were up by like 14. Yeah. They push it to 20,
13,
comes
10,
back to 10.
A little run here, run there. Whoa, got to get a score, timeout.
That has been the issue all year long, from game 1 against UNC Wilmington till now. I agree with you. I'm not hitting the panic button. The best way I'll describe Carolina is they've used up all their mulligans. All the mulligans that they've stacked up with number 1, they've used them all now. And I agree, they need practice. I'm not really panic. There's enough games on the schedule. But what they've done now is they play Ohio State. That's a big game for them. We only know of Virginia Tech wasn't even ranked, and we're just anointing them as one of those teams. So we're anointing, like, you got to beat those teams. So they're going to have to beat the Dukes. They're going to have to beat Virginias, and they're going to have to beat the Virginia Techs. Those are the 3 in the Miamis. Those are the 4 teams that we know are probably going to be quad 1 wins when you play them. And I don't know how many times, the when and where. And considering you already lost to Virginia Tech, that's gone. So they've used it all.
I'm looking at the schedule right now. Virginia Tech doesn't play North Carolina again. That's it. That's the last time.
So that's it, right? So they've done. So now you scratch them out. So that leaves you 3 teams. So they put so much emphasis on that Ohio State game. What do? I thought, and I'll leave it, and I ask you this. I thought they looked like, you know how when these guys go off and they go get NBA feedback, they come back trying to impress and do what the scouts told those guys to do. And that's what that team looked like early on to me. I think there's enough time to come back to figure it out. I think they played better when, they didn't handle getting pat on the back and telling them how great they are. Now everything's flipped. And now they're back to being not as good as we thought they were and blah. So let's just see if that helps them and they get motivated by doing that, because they didn't handle it well the first time. But I do think they're gonna make the tournament. It just won't be they'll make it again as not a top 5 seed though.
And coming from North Carolina, man, it's kind of, I always used to say it's like a nostalgic bubble. Like sometimes you're not living in reality from where the fans, from how you treat around campus, from the city. I mean, you are the guys. And I was blessed. We didn't have Instagram and Twitter had just started. We had Facebook. I was getting Facebook DMs, So like, it's tough. You got to block that noise out. And you know, when I was in school, I was fortunate enough to, you know, it wasn't getting tagged on videos and we couldn't just leave school and then come back. Like, so there's so many other factors that, like you said, I think play into that, you know, from the scouting perspective. Hey, Caleb, maybe we need to show us this. Armando, hey, maybe we need to see this. And so even beginning of the season, Armando, I mean, in preseason, in the scrimmage, Armando was shooting threes. And that's not to say he should be shooting them now, but why? If you're not going to expand your game, why all of a sudden you're shooting threes, you're on a perimeter. I've obviously heard people there talking about him shooting a three, and then all of a sudden season starts and you're down on the block again. Cool, but what are we doing? We're preparing for the season. Do things that you're going to do. So it's a lot going on. Not panic button. Practice. Let's get healthy. Big games coming up. I think they'll be okay. I think they'll be okay. I still think they're a top five.
You can't count them out. This team was one possession from winning a national championship.
We counted them out last year. They made it to the national title game.
And that's what I'm saying. So we can't count them out. There's no counting them out. I mean, I know people did. We did. All of us did at one point.
Behind the eight ball.
But they showed us last year that in the same situation they was in a year ago, they made a run to the national championship. You can't bank on that. I think they got to get consistently to rotation. They just got Jalen Washington back. I'm a huge fan of his. You know, DeMarco Dunn just got back and he broke his hand, so he's going to be out. You got to wait, get him back in. But I like Trumbull, the freshman.
Love Trumbull.
I like what I like what I saw with Jalen Washington. I've watched him in earlier when he's coming back. Really shoots it well. Let's see how he helps his team when he gets his legs up under him. I think this team is poised to make a run. And, you know, like I said again, it may not be a top 2 seed because they dug themselves in a hole early, but I'm not one to doubt them. I think they'll be there when it matters.
This is just what they needed, right? They just needed to struggle a little bit. Caleb Love needs to check his mentions, check his comments on Instagram, and see people hating, and then all of a sudden he's going to turn it on. That's all he needs.
He's going to turn it on. He's going to turn
That's
it
all
on.
he needed. Real question for you, real quick, RC. I know you've watched them a lot. Seth Trimble, I think, is a very important piece for them long term because he's the only guy on that roster that plays in the backcourt and is a ball mover. Right. Those other guys, RJ, Caleb, comes to them and they're pounding that thing. They're trying to get a shot off. Seth is the guy that can kind of keep moving a little bit. And it doesn't become as all right, it's my turn to go one-on-one. All right, it's your turn to go one-on-one. All right, you take them this time. Right.
I thought that's what Davis turned into last year. And then this season started, and for whatever reason, it just didn't fit. All of them didn't fit together. They looked like they did at the beginning of the season last year. Not the team that we saw, not even just in the tournament, just the second half of the season. They didn't look like that group. We thought they had all that ironed out. But Seth is a ball mover, hell of an athlete, got a burst.
Plays hard.
I mean, he competes on the defense. I mean, he comes in and he's like, yo, my role is I'm taking the best perimeter guy on the other side. Not a lot of freshmen do that. And this is new. I think Hubert has guys to rotate them in. I think that's where the DeMarco injury hurts him because he could sit guys down. But Trumbull is a keeper, man. He's a baller. I'm excited about his future.
Yep. All right, let's get into some first month of the season superlatives. Before we do, I just want to let everybody know, Field of 68 Daily, you can find the link in the description. It is our newsletter. It comes out daily every morning, 8:30 a.m. when you're eating, when you're drinking your coffee and eating your bagel and taking your morning dump. The best thing that you can do is sit there on your phone, open up your email inbox, and scroll through and check out the Field of 68 Daily. It's the best way to keep up with everything college basketball every single morning. All right, we're going to roll through these quickly because I know that Dagan's tired and he's going to start yelling at us and he wants us to call it a night. So let's start with this. National Player of the Year, 5 weeks into the season. Can it possibly be anybody other than Zach Edey? It's got to be Edey, right?
Yeah.
Zach Edey.
Is there
anybody else close?
22 and 14. I don't see how. Number one team in the country, 22 and 14, Zach Edey. Next question. I don't even know what to talk about.
I think the only guy that I think is close right now is probably Jalen Wilson, and that's it. And he's like 2 steps below Edey. Is there anyone else that you can think of that's close at this point?
I like Jalen. It's Jalen and Edey because Jalen's putting up some gaudy stats, so that's going to help him. So if Kansas can make a run, Edey may have some competition if he keeps it up, maybe.
Yep.
Edey's been the best player on the floor, no matter who they played, and they played some good teams. He's been the best player on the floor.
Yep, I agree. All right, National Coach of the Year, 5 weeks into the season. John, I'm going to you first on this one.
Coach of the Year, I'm going to go Dan Hurley. he's got them boys rolling. I don't think I didn't. UConn wasn't on my radar. And yeah, it wasn't on my radar. And they're surging. They're playing well. They're 11-0. And they're talking about them being the best team in the country. So I gotta go right now. 10 games in, Dan Hurley, man. I mean,
Is RC coming back, or is he going for good?
Danny Hurley.
I'm sorry, man. I blacked out for a second. I forgot. What's the question again? What's the question? Mike Young. I'm going Mike Young. I'm going Mike Young.
Yeah, hate on Mike Young.
I'm going Mike Young.
Okay. They got a little more work to do, but I'm with you.
The reason I say that too is because we're talking about a team wasn't ranked. Nobody ranked them, and they have been as impressive as anybody. And they're going to get better, as I talked about. I think because this team, like I said, we weren't talking about a team that shot up rankings that was already ranked. Right. They're just getting the national recognition that they deserve. And I've seen them enough to know that they're going to be there in the end. They'll be a team that in 2 weeks we'll still be talking about them as a top 15 team.
If they finish top 2, 3 in the ACC, ranked top 15-ish, I think it's a no-brainer. So that's a good call.
There's a couple that I want to mention. I think Kevin Willard got to be in the conversation at some point. I think Chris Jans at Mississippi State got to be in the conversation at some point. It's very hard to have this conversation without throwing Matt Painter in the mix. But I'm going to go with Tommy Lloyd since my pick would have been the homer pick. I'm glad John made that pick, so I didn't have to be the one to do it. But I'm going to go with Tommy Lloyd. We talked about him earlier. The guys that he lost last year, what he's doing with two bigs that can't really shoot. The fact that there's just been no drop off after, he took over and turned a team with all of Sean Miller's players. And that was the storyline last year. And he turned them into the team that they were last season. All those guys left. He's got his own crew in right now. And he turned Umar Ballo and Azelis Tubelis into the best front line in college basketball. So to me, it is Tommy Lloyd at this point. All right. Freshman of the year. This is an interesting one, and one that we've kind of had some arguments internally at the Field of 68 about. I think it's Brandon Miller. I think he's been the best freshman. I know that he was 0 for 8, 0 for 9 from the floor against Houston. But overall, I think that he's been the best freshman in college basketball. Is there anybody else, RC, that you put in that mix?
He would probably be the best, but a close second, if not first, is Kyle Filipowski for Duke. I think he has been lights out. You hear so much talking about Lively, Derek Whitehead coming in. Duke plays big. We talking about teams that play big, and he allows them to play big.
You know, my favorite part about Filipowski is I spoke with somebody that went to a practice before the season and saw him and said, I don't think he'll be able to get on the floor. Do you remember who that was, RC?
I know. Listen to me. I wasn't alone when I said that.
I know.
I will gladly admit that. When I watched him play in the preseason, I was like, how is he going to play? I didn't see it. And I'm here today to say, listen, I'll choke on all those words. I mean, he is their best. He's their best player.
Yeah.
And he's about to do something that's never been done in the history of the ACC, guys. He has won the freshman of the year 4 straight weeks to start the season. And on the verge of, if he wins it again, it'll be the first time in the history of the conference that a freshman wins ACC 5 times in a row to win. I mean, that's just that alone is something that's really, really impressive when you think about the freshman and not arguably historically the best basketball conference in college basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we saw him live. He's good. He's big. He's strong. He plays well.
Because he's tougher than I thought he was. Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I thought he was just like this finesse dude, and this tough as hell. Tough as hell. As he physically matures over the season, look out.
He definitely fits the mold of that new age big too, man. Can move a little bit, can finish, can play on the perimeter.
Shoot it.
He's nice.
He put it on the floor better than you think he does. Like overall skill wise, man, he's gonna be of all those ranking. I tell you, of the freshmen, it would be hard pressed to find that legit 6'11", 7 foot. When it comes draft time, he's a top 3 pick.
Wow. Yeah, he also dunked on Michigan State a couple different, or was it Kansas a couple times at the Champions Classic, RC? I didn't realize he had that in his game as well. All right, most improved player in college basketball this season, RC. I'm going to tee you up. You got this first.
Tyree Appleby. And I know y'all going to say it's a homer pick, but the numbers back it up. I mean, this dude's gone up from 10 to 19 points a game. He shot 36% a year ago. He's up to 54%, I think, from the floor. He's shooting 44 from three, up from like low 30s. He's a 50-40, and he's only shooting 87% from the line. I mean, it's not many 50, 40, 90 guys out there on the team that's what are they, 8-2 right now, whatever they are. And no one is playing any better much better than he is right now. I mean, he's a small guard, but I mean, he's nearly doubled his average.
John?
I'm going to go Jalen Wilson. He's up from 11 points to 22, 26% from three to 36% from three. Free throw percentage up, rebounds up, assists up. He's my most improved guy. And he's playing at a high level right now. So that's my most improved right now.
So my most improved guy, the numbers really haven't taken a huge spike, but I think that his impact that we've seen is part of the reason why we've seen this team go from NIT last year to top 5 in America this year, and that's Reese Beekman. I think that he has gone from being a guy that was kind of like, you know what, he's got the pieces, he's got the ability. I think that maybe he could be good, to being a guy where it's like, oh yeah, you know what, he's a first round pick. He's an NBA player at his size with his defensive ability, the way that he can create off the bounce. Like he's the guy to me that has taken Virginia from being like, okay, they got a chance to be good, to okay, you know, this team is really, really good. All right. Single biggest X factor in college basketball this year. I'm gonna take this one first while you guys think about it a little bit. I know you're gonna call me a homer for it, but I think that it's Andre Jackson. I think that the fact that one, he's a guy that could end up being a first round pick and is accepting a role off the bench is huge for the culture and for the kind of the team dynamic. And two, I don't think there's a better defensive player in college basketball this year, with the way that he can just kind of go out there and mess everything up. That's all he does. He's crazy athletic. He's the piece that brings everything together on that UConn team. And without him, I don't think that they are sitting here at 11-0 with all the wins that they have. John, who do you got?
I'm gonna go ACC. I'm gonna go Isaiah Wong. You know, that's a team that you know, they're on the verge of making a little noise, and he's averages 16 points a game, 4.5 rebounds, 4 assists, 38% from 3 on 5 attempts. I believe they go as he goes, and if he can stay hot, playing well, playing efficient, I think that team can rally around him. And they got some good players down there, and that's going to be my biggest national X factor for me, man. I love his game, and I feel like for as far as a team, if he goes out, they're dead. So that's how I feel about him. So
Jordan Miller is going to put that team on his back. For me, it's Leaky Black. I'm gonna go with your alma mater. I think Leaky Black. There's a lot of issues early on that's with Carolina. And if Leaky Black, because of what he is, and he knows what he is, I mean, defensively, if they take on more of that personality, I think they turn things around quicker. And I also say he shot 41% in tournament ACC play last year. And if he that would be the ultimate 3-and-D guy. And I think if Carolina is going to get back to anywhere near the level they were playing with last year, I think some of that needs to go. You start talking about the big three, the other guys. Yeah. I think Leaky Black is a big part of that.
RC, who's the most underrated team in college basketball right now?
Utah State, baby. Mountain West. Go Ryan Odom, baby. Ryan Odom. Utah State. Yeah, you wasn't expecting that one. I know you wasn't ready.
No, not at all.
I was waiting all night for you to ask me that question. Mountain West, baby. 12th ranked team in the net rankings right now. I ain't got nothing else to say the rest of the show. That's so I'm good.
This was tough because like, is it most underrated like with a chance to win it, or like just most underrated in the country? Because like if we talking about the top dogs, maybe like a Tennessee, but then I like Mississippi State as a team that's like one of the more underrated teams as well. So I'm gonna go a little mix. Go Tennessee for the big dogs, and like as far as teams that people aren't talking about, Mississippi State.
I like it. I'm going with Memphis as the most underrated team in college basketball. I just think how old they are, how tough they are. I think that they are going to be a team that can make a run this year. I think they're not in the top 25. They're going to be in the top 25 before it's all said and done. And here's my bold prediction. They are going to beat Houston at least once this season, whether it's one of the 2 games in regular season or in the American Conference Tournament. All right, the biggest fraud in the country, John. Who do you got?
Man, I'm going with the Fighting Atlanta. We're sitting in the media section talking about how good they looked, how like they're looking like a top team, and man, he's got these boys playing, and like, I mean, we were riding for them, and then they lay an egg. Like I was just like, no, you know. So that's my team. I'm just more so that's more of a personal thing because we were riding for them boys, man, on our last episode, talking about potential final. I mean, we were on their tails. So
Did you see Underwood's press conference? Did you see what he said?
yeah, like talking about his guy, like that should tell you something too. Like the last
That was the funniest. That's the funniest shit all year, man.
what's going on over there for him to so Terrence Shannon's got to figure out his leadership qualities because he's been struggling actually early in the games, and I don't know what's going on with him or kind of with the team dynamic, but they need him to pick it up because he's the guy over there. But yeah, those are the biggest fraud. That's the biggest fraud to me. I mean, I threw my paper in the air like when they lost. Like, all right, let's just regroup.
We got RC.
I gotta switch it to Chris Beard, man. To put yourself in this situation, to put that university, to put those kids, put everybody in this situation tonight. That's just inexcusable. And we even had to start the show off discussing that. I don't need to say anything else, but that would be it.
My biggest fraud is Kentucky. We've talked about this at length. I don't trust teams that have that many guys.
I started to say that too.
Can't
That's
trust that
where I
many
was
guys that
going.
can't-
And if
You know
I
what's,
didn't
you know
say
what's
that,
funny? I was going to take Texas. And then you said, I was like, you know what? Let me
I
switch
was
it
going
up.
to take Kentucky until that, and I switched it. But I agree with you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
All right. Final four picks. RC. Wrap it up.
Alabama. I'm so far. I don't think you can.
You can't
I
duck
got
this
no
one,
clue.
man. You can't
I
duck this
can't
one.
duck it. I got no clue on who I truly believe.
Don't worry. The beauty of this business is that you can make your picks now and then just change them in a week.
I can
and you
change
won't have
it.
any
Okay.
idea. Yeah.
I'm going to say the Huskies. I did like the Huskies. I'm going to go with the Huskies. I will give you that. I like Alabama. I think Alabama's going to be a tough out there. I think I can't go with the Tar Heels right now.
I can't either.
I would love to say that they'll be back, but I can't right now until I start seeing them better. I'm going to go with Arizona right now. How about Arizona? I'll take Arizona as one, and I.
Tar Heel Avenue, baby.
I want to go up. I'm not completely abandoning your boys, but I ain't ready to put them back there.
I appreciate that.
I'm not off the bandwagon. I am on the Tar Heel bandwagon. I don't know who my fourth team would be. It's Dom. I got to go with Purdue. How can you argue Purdue right now? Let's go with Purdue.
Right.
John, who do you got?
I'm gonna go Purdue, UConn, Arizona, and Virginia.
So I didn't have Purdue in my final four. I worry about them defensively. I have Arizona. I have Alabama. I have Arkansas. I'm still calling the Hogs, baby. 4 first-round picks in the first round. They have it getting there. But the team that is cutting down the nets on April 2nd in Houston, Texas, is going to be the UConn Huskies. You guys know it's going to be that.
Listen to me.
RC's going to walk off the set down there in Houston at least 5 times.
Championship, I am walking. I'll be hitchhiking up the damn highway. I'm leaving. I'm telling you, I'm walking home, man. I couldn't be.
Kimber Walker's not walking through that door. Come on, man. Come on, man.
They're good, man. They are good.
They're good.
I'm only teasing because of Rob.
Hey, John, we'll revisit that in Houston. We'll revisit that in Houston. But listen, it's been the Field of 68 After Dark. It was a fun episode. We got through the rough stuff, and I think that we had a good time with it. So for Randolph Childress, for John Henson, for my busted ass camera over here, and producer Dagan Hughes, my name is Rob Dauster. We will see you guys again tomorrow night.